Hello, welcome everyone. Sustainable Design Research Consortium with Aspire Infinitus presents to you the Shiro's Journey. Now, what is the Shiro's Journey? The term first came to being in 1836 during the suffrage movement. Today, we believe a Shiro can be everyday people who support diversity and have strong character and sense of self. They support, encourage, and push every woman to be better and are champions for gender and social equality. Anyone at any age, gender, and from any culture or background can be a Shiro. Introducing the Shiro's journey in transformational change management under the Storycraft project. To quote Joseph Campbell, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. It is understandable that people react to change with degrees of resistance. Change is a personal decision. The uncertainty, risk, doubt, and fear of the unknown are key factors that hold back people from taking the first step on their journey to an unknown destination and breaking the status quo. How do we unite people on a shared purpose? Help them take the first step forward and own it. Try new ways of working and learn from the experience. It is in this context that the Shiro's journey was conceptualized. Again, Joseph Campbell found out that for thousands of years, people all over the world communicated with stories having similar patterns and basic elements. These stories incorporate mechanisms that connect people on a deeper core level. It is in our DNA. In a sense, the hero or Shiro's journey taps into each of our innate human desire to be part of a better world. It gives us a sense that real, meaningful transformation is possible. All around us, we see these change agents. All of their journeys have common elements and stages. We need to uncover these to empower the others waiting on the threshold. Looking at similarities in change agents' journeys help to highlight powerful voices that we can hear each other out and decide on the best possible action while navigating the real time conflicts. Understand the risks in this journey from similar experiences and agree on a shared outcome even before starting to change anything. And because a good story is as important as a powerful narrator who tells it, let's explore the stories of visionary leaders as they share their journeys. We map the thresholds and find the unifying links of transformative action. We start the Shiro's journey with Manvi Kulshrestha, who is foremost among the transformational women leaders that we know. Over to her. Manvi Kulshrestha is an urbanist and a feminist. She is currently working as program advisor, Economy of Tomorrow at Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, India office. The program looks at building progressive discourse for three mega trends in India: urban transformation, energy transition, and digital automation. She's interested in social, economic, and ecological aspects of development policy making. I now ask Shautrajit to continue the session.
For the specific journey today, the Shiro's journey, which has been introduced before, we have chosen Manvi as a Shiro because we have had the privilege of working with her very closely, and we have seen how she handles scenarios, how she handles situations, how she takes on the leadership in various, let's say, constraints, and the way she has brought forward the discourse every time and made sure that every program, every initiative, every situation that she is involved with ultimately reaches its projected outcome. So today, to keep it short, we have chosen two interlocutors. The first is Mr. Nimalya Sen. He is a very senior media person, having worked as chief editor with many of the leading brands here and also in the United States, where he was situated for almost 1.5 decades. He had done his second master's there. And from there, he moved on to become a very senior correspondent back here. And we also have with us Sangeeta Mukherjee, who's a senior PR professional working for the last 1 decade with the Indian Chamber of Commerce, and she has been handling a lot of projects and a lot of PR functions very successfully. She's also an alumnus of the Indian Institute of Management. So, with further ado, we like Sanjukta, if you could pass on the questions to both of them so that they could proceed with the program. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm calling upon Mr. Sen to start.
Okay, I have a few questions, 4 exactly. What was your everyday life and your comfort zone?
Here are some results from the web.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Okay, so firstly, I would like to say thank you to Sanjukta, Satyajit, Nirmala, and Sangeeta for thinking of me as a Shiro. In all modesty, I'm not a Shiro. I'm just, I would say, I'm just a medium here at this institution which I represent, and it so happens that the values I have and the values of the organization match. So it's easy to carry on the work. But I'm really glad to be here and really honored to have this opportunity. Well, the life was pretty normal actually. I'm an architect. I studied architecture for 5 years, and I thought of doing master's degree in urban planning. And from when I was studying, I came across the organization Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, and I thought that they were doing some really incredible work because the work was mostly not about just carrying out change, but carrying out change in a manner that is inclusive and always thinking about people who are not, usually brought into mainstream debates. So I thought it would be nice to work with this organization, and that is how the life was, working with the German think tank. And when I started, I actually started in the gender unit, so it was also kind of a training field for me because I understood a lot of theoretical concepts of gender mainstreaming, gender equality through work. Usually, one is, I mean, my upbringing, say, or the family I come from was such that one didn't think too much about equal rights or equal opportunities because, in a way, they were presented to us. So one wasn't actually seeing the other side of the world so much within the family. But yes, when work started, when I started interacting with the partners, organizations, looking at the world from a very different perspective, I realized that there are so many issues to be tackled. And I would say actually my job has been my training ground, and it is a very good training ground, I would say. But this was how life was, work and the usual way.
When did your call to adventure happen?
Actually, it wasn't so much of a call to adventure, I would say. I mean, it was not like a planned move or a planned decision or like a strike of a movement. It wasn't something like that. But I think over the years, while working, while seeing the situation around oneself, like when you start working in an organization which is day in day out talking about equality, inclusivity, marginalization, then you also have that lens on you all the time. So even in the personal life, you are looking at things from that lens. You are looking at the family from that lens. You are looking at friends, the interactions between all these people from that lens. And I think more and more the realization comes, more and more the understanding comes in, that the world is not equal, that there needs to be so much done, and whether you also start questioning whether you I being such a small, entity, is there any way I would be able to, fulfill what I'm thinking I should fulfill, in terms of bringing about equality and these things. But I think, and when, when you're young and you see a lot of people around you who are already making a difference, you also think that, like them, you can also, make a difference. You just need like a good support system. But I think more and more, when I started going to the field, going to different places, and also meeting people who are not usually part of the work spectrum, meeting people out of the work spectrum, meeting random people, random organizations, seeing how they function, seeing how they interact with their people, interact with the people they want to make change for. Those things kind of, slowly and gradually they kind of start hitting, the right chord in your brains or heart. So I would say it wasn't like just a moment of, realization, but it was coming in over time, like slowly and steadily, gradually, some things were changing. Some small realizations were coming, which, became maybe a bit bigger eventually, where I thought, okay, there are there are certain problems which really need to be addressed, and maybe we are not looking at them in the right manner. We are going about in the same traditional way of looking at problems that we have had so far, and it's not reaching anywhere. It's not making any change, or it's maybe making change in 100 years, but you actually want the change to happen now. So maybe the intention is right, but the path is not right, or the speed of doing things is not right. I think that is what was hitting me at some point. And I think there was always a back and forth, because at one, and like I said, when you're young, you think, there is so much energy and zeal, and you think, "Ki, Aaj to, oh, I have understood what is wrong, and then I will work around it." I shall make a strategy, and I shall work to correct, the situation. But when you start working on it, you also realize that you are maybe not as experienced. You don't have the knowledge. You don't have the tools to carry it out. You just have the dream in your hand. Um, yeah, but and then comes the abyss, when you realize that, you're nothing, and you can't actually do anything, because you don't have that kind of influence. So maybe you should look to people who have the kind of influence. Then you change the strategy. So yeah, there have been ups and downs all in my head. But yes, the effort is always to make some change, or some take one, at least one tiny step forward, in order to accomplish the dream.
So, Manvi, I would say that instead of one particular moment that you can pinpoint as, the turning point, it has been a realization over some
Some
time,
period of months, yeah,
some
yeah,
period.
sometime, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not a turn of event somewhere in that moment, but it's like slow and steady. Yeah.
But it has been turning in your head, and then there was
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, no, because it's really difficult when you are in change making field. It's very difficult to shut down the work part when you go home, because you're always constantly thinking about that. Even when you are on the road, you look around and you realize, okay, this is also, maybe you see children begging on street, and you start relating everything to everything. You start thinking, okay, I'm an urban planner, and cities are planned in a way that, cities are not catering to the needs of these people, or cities actually turning a blind eye on these people, and it is people like me who are making the city. So, why aren't people thinking about it? So, and so such realizations keep coming and going. Obviously, when you are off the street, you're not thinking about them anymore, because you're consumed in your own self, and you're in your personal life. But yeah, I think it comes off and on, it comes and goes, and then there are days when you are thinking too much about it, and then there are days when you're not thinking about it. So I mean, it's human nature, and like I said, I'm not a shiro in that sense. So it's not like I was committed to it 100%, but yeah, I mean, there are days when one feels really sad about the state of things. Yeah.
Okay, just one point that I'd like to make before Mr. Sen asks the next question, because that is also very relevant. Just to put a little bit into perspective, away from what Joseph Campbell said, the heroes, as we know, especially in the classical literature, were people who had like one bit of divinity in them. One parent was a god or a god form or somebody, and none of them chose to be what they were doing. Like you look at Achilles, you look at any of the other people, they were almost thrust into it by destiny. But they learned to find their own place, and they learned to find their own contributions, and they learned to take on their entire responsibility, whether they liked it or not. Now, I have seen personally, I can say, man, we do a lot of that in our workplace. Take on challenges which perhaps other people would have said, okay, fine, let's go on with whatever we do. But I've seen her proactively engage with the people, partners, stakeholders, beneficiaries, etc., where another person perhaps in her place would not have been so engaged. So when we call her as our first Shiro, we are convinced. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Sen, if you can go on.
Yeah. I wanted. Okay. Back to the third question. Where do you map the resistance/fear of your journey, Mangavi?
I think I would give an example here, because otherwise it'll sound too all over the place. So there have been, also as an organization, one is always trying to reinvent and set up newer ways of doing work, and obviously as person working in the organization, we are also trying to keep up with it. And I'm always excited about learning new things, because we are learners for life, and we can't be saying that we know it all at any given point of time. So yeah, so whenever there are newer opportunities to learn, educate oneself on new things, it excites me, honestly. So yeah, so we began working on some systems thinking methods, and and when I try to apply that to the work area I was looking at, um, obviously because of the kind of partners and organizations that we work with, who have similar bandwidth as ours, similar outlook as ours, in terms of learning, educating, training oneself, building capacities, and all that. I think they were also very welcome to the idea, and they were also very excited that they also have found like some new ways of approaching the uh, old problem. But I also realized that and even before that, whenever we have gone to the field, talked to organizations, I've always felt that the organizations which have worked for many years, and I've created like treasures of knowledge, and maybe created through their visions, they have created tremendously exceptionally brilliant leaders, and develop, nurture people in their organizations, and they're very proud to do that, and we are also very proud that we have associations with them. But there is always a thing about, this is mine, this is my baby, or I started this organization, or this is my vision, or this is how it should be, because this is how I thought it should be. I think that organizations, I don't know about the world, but at least in India, and also because of the societal structure, or how societies are made out here, there is the people have a lot of resistance in letting go of things, of of their hand. And this is something that we struggle a lot. So it's actually not the work. So if I'm out there saying that, in any conversation we have to ensure that there is a minimum number of women voices there, not just women participation but women voices, or are we saying that, there has to be a minimum number of young people, because you can't be talking about the problems of future unless you have the future in the room, huh? So you can't have like a group of oldies sitting about and talking about the future of work, because they are not going to be there when the future of work arrives. So work wise it's not a problem. I think the most resistance comes from when we are telling people that, maybe this is not the right way to look at the organization, or maybe this is not. And obviously you don't say it in these words that this is not the right way, but just the idea of introspecting, the idea of trying to see what went wrong in the past, what could be corrected, what would be the new ways of approaching. I think there is a lot of resistance there from people, and that resistance uh, would not be harmful, but it does affect the work. So ultimately, the vision or the goal of an organization, if it is to ensure that people in a community are getting the right kind of livelihoods, or the livelihoods which do not exploit natural resources. But if you have like if you don't have shared vision in the organization, or if you do not have democratic practices in the organization itself, then how, then that your ultimate goal doesn't get fulfilled. So I and actively I have seen that, there are people very very attached to the visions or to the organizations, and they would not just let go of those ideas, or they are not acceptable to newer ideas or newer ways. And I think this is something that one needs to work on. And I would also say that it's not, and it's very easy to see that in an organization from an outsider perspective. Like if I am going to an organization, I can easily see it. But for me myself also to see it within me and within my organization, I think that is also very important, because no one will come and tell us, no one will come and assess my organization and say that, okay, maybe we will have some evaluation of some kind, and which will say, oh, okay, these systems are not in place, you should have these systems in place. But it is, I think, more than just putting some systems in place. It's also about the soul of the organization. So, and unfortunately for me, I have to understand, for this to apply to me, I have to do it myself. No one else would come and tell me. So this is something, yeah.
Mr. Sen, you're muted. Mr. Sen, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Okay. Which encounters could you say were roadblocks on the way to achieving the goal/journey?
Not any encounter as such, but I think, yeah, in general, when one is working with people, so there are people who are a little old and rough, and I, being if I can call myself young, I'm being very young, not that young, but yeah, younger than them, probably. So yeah, getting advice or getting suggestions from a women who is half your age is still not pretty acceptable in India. Also, maybe I lack the, say, the skills of communicating the same, um, in a in a professional manner, or no. as in one has to be very tactful when one is dealing with these things. Like I was very conscious when I was encountered with such people, that and also you know they have done incredible work, so you also don't want to undermine the work. But I have seen very often that in gatherings, in meetings, there'll be one patriarch who would want to drive the whole conversation, and then there are young people there, there are women there who wouldn't get the chance that they deserve. And it's difficult to moderate also. Like at work we do a lot of moderation and facilitation of brainstorming sessions or such sessions, but it is at times difficult to intervene or to interject or to politely say, maybe you have had enough chance since many years now, and maybe it is time to hand over the baton to younger people here, or to allow different kind of voices here. So yeah, I mean, and no one particular person, but this is a common phenomenon, and anyone who is working in the field would know that this is very common all across India. You do come across such people. In fact, when I say patriarch, I don't necessarily mean a man, but there are women patriarchs as well, who are by all means and for all the admiration they deserve, have been like the force of nature, and have changed, brought incredible changes. But there are very few, and I have met a few of them, but they are very few in numbers, who are so open and forthcoming as to what is the requirement of the present and the future, and would work towards it. Yeah.
So, so Mr. Sen, if you're finished with your questions for the time being, I'd request Angita to proceed with her questions. She also has a set of questions to ask, and we are also capturing the woman-to-woman voice. Yeah, so, Sangita.
Yes. Well, my first question would be like the biggest challenge or challenges which threatens to completely derail the mission.
I think the biggest challenge is within us. Either you start thinking, like I would start thinking, that I have understood the rules of the game and I know what is to be done. I think that's overestimating. Or the second is being a bit underconfident about oneself, that I will be able to make a change here, or I will be able to drive some point here, um, that under so I would say it's more personal in that sense, as in how assertive I can be in such a situation. I would also say that I have often used the position that I hold in the organizations to sometimes, just drive the point and say कि नहीं ये तो ऐसे ही होगा. Yeah, but it is difficult and it is not fair also. But I think that it has a little advantage, and people listen to you, but it shouldn't be the case. People should listen to me only if they feel that I'm saying the right thing or I am appealing to their interest. But yeah, I think the challenges lie in how I see myself evolving in such situations, how ready I am to adapt to a suddenly arising challenge, or how ready I am to accept that there will be certain things which will go a certain way, and I don't have to be stuck up and say ki, not make like a personality or an ego thing, and say, okay, this is where I should let it go, and this is how it should happen, and maybe in some time we'll come back to it and handle it. Yeah.
Okay. I captured this word let it go, which you have mentioned is very important, for all of us, maybe, in the work life, maybe in personal life. So I will
Exactly.
also remember this. Maybe we forget as a
Yeah,
person,
yeah.
try to, hold on to many things. So this is a good takeaway for me. My next question to you is the inner cave, the understanding of the ordeal and your inner journey. I repeat the question, the inner cave, the understanding of the ordeal and your inner journey.
I my so journey hasn't finished, definitely. I think just like 10% of the journey has taken place. Um, um, I think for me, I what I usually do is I try to pick up the positives from the people I meet. I also try to see how they are reacting to certain situations, or how they have tackled a certain situation, or how they have been able to make a, you know make a small, maybe a behavioral change. They have instigated that behavioral change by not being aggressive, but by being polite, even, or by acknowledging that, okay, you are right, and okay, this is what you're saying is right, and not all the thing, no, what I'm saying is right, this has to be done this way. But giving the person their due respect, acknowledging that what they have done, acquired so far, is really important, and it is important, like not bluffing, but it is important. And then carrying on that path. So I think one is definitely building trust, even with people with whom you have worked for long. It's a very fragile thing, and you have to keep working on it. It cannot be taken for granted that you have a number of years of uh, relationship with someone, and um, you can use that relationship card anytime. But because the life is giving us different circumstances and different challenges all the time, it is important that we also keep reviving these trust relationship, these understanding of other people's genuine problems. It's not that someone was uh, and also there are a lot of incidences which keep happening to us, which can change our perception. So we shouldn't also take it for granted that someone was on your side, or was speaking from your perspective one day, and they have like a sudden, it's not like a sudden change of heart that they had, and then they're speaking otherwise. But it's actually something must have happened, and we have to always think. And Satrajit and Sanjukta know that they don't have to interpret it our way, but we have to be mindful of the fact that there would be many many different circumstances which have led that person to say or do or react in a certain manner. So that's, I think, we have to be very very conscious about that. And unless we are more empathetic towards other people, unless we are more open towards other people, uh, there is no way we can uh, go about our business of change making. It's just not possible.
Yeah, you have mentioned, I noted two, three very important attributes. One is mindfulness. Another is to be empathetic, to be empathetic to, to the circumstances, people, openness. So these are very important things, which we should learn and we should try to remember. And after, like having a glance of, your journey, after knowing your journey, so we should be able to apply also, in our day-to-day lives. Okay, my next question is the outcomes and the return to the previous life having changed because of journey.
I I keep thinking more, like more and more, that um, a lot of things, positive things that we do in our professional part of the life, it is sometimes easier to carry it out because you have like a mandate from the organization. You have to report, or you have to there are set objectives that you have to fulfill through the year, and you ensure that these tasks are done. But in private life, you do not have anything like that. You do not have an objective or a goal for a year, like indicators which have to be fulfilled from January till December. And you also do not apply methods, tools, system thinking techniques to your personal relationships or to your personal goals. And I think it is, for me, one big outcome, say, or one big learning has been that it has to go in parallel. So if I am worried about the inequalities or marginalization of people in my professional sphere, and if the certain same problem I have in my personal sphere as well, where I when I'm interacting in society in general, then whatever means I apply to the professional life should also be applied to the personal life. It can't be that the problems are same but the solutions are different, or there is no solution actually for the personal part of the or part of life. So yeah, this is, and I'm not saying I have been able to achieve it. It's a very slow process. It requires a lot of work because it is very difficult to carry out. It is very difficult to change people at home or people we are interacting with day in day out. It's very difficult to change a maybe a cab driver's perspective on, say, uh, occupants from uh, different religious groups. You also sometimes get into conversations like this, random conversations with random people, and then you realize, okay, this is not going the right way. Or maybe people have biases, but maybe it's not your place to just go about changing biases of everyone. They should have their own journey. But yeah, it is important that you keep applying the solutions or the approaches that you have in professional life in personal life as well. Otherwise, this goes in a nice planned manner and this goes haphazard all the time. And because you are not separated from the two, then your mind is also going haphazard all the time. You start getting, start going into these conflicting areas where you say, कि अच्छा एक हाथ पे तो मैं ये कर रही हूँ, पर I am not able to do this. I am talking about environment, but I am not able to, save, reduce my carbon footprint. Or I am talking about equality, but I am not able to give fair wages. So just to not, be trapped in those conflicting, um, ideas and jails, I think it is important that these two are in tandem.
Yes, like what I understand is like change management is very important. It's a very, everyday process.
Yeah,
When we work
exactly.
with organizations, with environment, with people around in personal lives. But the biggest challenge is to maintain your peak state, maybe, so that we can deliver at the fullest. Like you, of course, you try to maintain your best state possible to achieve what you want to do, with the help of your peer groups, with the organization and move on. So I think that is something
Yeah,
that's very
yeah.
important.
I mean, thankfully, I work in an organization which has very clear-cut vision and objectives, so it's easier. At least the processes are there, the systems are there, so it's easier to carry on the task. But unfortunately, we don't have similar things in our personal lives. So,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah,
one has to make that extra effort all the
yes.
time. Yeah.
And if I may put in, transformational change is not about ticking the checklist.
Yeah,
Transformational change is walking the talk.
exactly.
And that's why the person or the people involved make the change
Exactly.
rather than, just ticking some of the things the processes dictate. Yeah, done. But it doesn't lead to transformational change. And I think in the work that Manvi does, a lot of that has been realized in the projects, that the organization and she herself that is involved in, and they've worked very much in tandem. Having known both the organization and the person is something that I take upon myself to say. Yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think, I mean, you are giving me much more credit than I deserve, but yes, I think nowadays, because I'm so conscious about these things, even before, maybe assessing an organization or my organization about, how close they are walking the talk, I always think about myself and I say, okay, I will shut up before I, I will have to work on myself before, I can comment on anyone else.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for your wonderful views, and these are all suggestions which we can take it from here as well, while listening to you and talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I have a question for Manvi if she's open to that, because this is how we generally go about the hero's journey. You have a specific professional training, Manvi, like you trained as an architect and you understood the entire cityscape, you understand buildings per se, you understand the ethics and the ethos that go behind it, right? And you've also emerged in your own work as a very leading developmental practitioner because of the kind of work that you do. I'm taking away the fluff. I'm saying that, okay, you do the work that you do and we've seen the way you do your work. So you have to take on a lot of challenges, which is very deeply, let's say, hurtful at times and deeply changing. Because as you said, that when you're living your philosophy, when you're living your ethos inside out throughout your entire ecology, a lot of change occurs. So if I look at you as a woman leader, it doesn't have to be what or how many you're leading. I'm not looking at span of control, but as a person who's in a leadership role who has to take informed and responsible decisions, what would your message be to other girls, other women, let's see, I look at them as my young cohort, but not everybody might be young. Some of them are pretty old also, but they're still trying to do things about making a change. So all the ladies that who are around us, who can actually learn from your example, what would be your message? What would be your, the core of what you have taken from your work and your learning for all this while, which can be replicated, independent of the paradigm? Your message. Yeah.
I think anyone who has like similar work as myself, or maybe actually any field, not myself, but any field,
Yes,
any
work.
field, and faces any kind of resistance, I would say don't take it personally, because it's actually the resistance is not towards yourself as a person, as Mandvi, but it is generally towards a group of people. So resistance would be towards women per se, or resistance would be towards, say, professionals in that field. And most of the people from whom the resistance comes, it's just an outlet for them. You were there at the wrong place, wrong time, basically, and it could have been anyone else. But it is. Well, I would take it positively and say, if it is not violent, only if it is not violent, it's just exchange of dialogue in a very constructive way. But I would say it is actually a positive thing if someone is someone is resisting in front of you, because maybe you are more equipped to handle or respond to that resistance than maybe some other women or lady. So if I have had the kind of experience or exposure, and right now I can safely say that, okay, if I face resistance, I know how to handle it, and that is a good thing. I would say let the resistance come to me, because
Exactly.
I know how to handle it, and not to like a 16-year-old who may not have the knowledge to handle it, or maybe
Yeah.
has the knowledge to handle. 16-year-olds are very smart these days, smarter than me maybe. But yeah, so yes, so anyone who's in the field and who knows, who can stand their ground, who knows what they stand for, who know what is wrong and how to or tackle it properly, amicably. Welcome resistance. Let it come to you.
Yes, that's a very strong statement because you see, the first thing that we teach our daughters, and since I have the privilege of having a daughter and I've made her grow up a little like me, she handles resistance in a different way, violent and otherwise. But then I also keep on telling her that, see, it is good to have resistance because otherwise you never know what
You
you're
never
going to
know.
face when your pops is, like she calls me pops is not around tomorrow. Somewhere,
Yeah.
some place where you're working. So what happens that day?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's exactly what I was trying to capture when I was asking you this question because you have faced it inside out. So that's a very, very novel suggestion that you should be welcoming. Of course, as you said, neither any violence nor any violation of your space,
Yeah.
your thought,
Space.
etc.
No.
That is
Not
absolutely,
allowed. Yeah.
but that is just not allowed. Yeah, it's non-negotiable. But when it comes to dialogue or when it comes to an exchange of thoughts, if there is resistance, then our girls grow up to be better girls tomorrow. Like I
Exactly.
expect my daughter to have a daughter, not a son. So when that happens, I
No,
would want
I
my
mean you
granddaughter.
should.
I would
No,
want
but
her
this
to
is
have that
exactly
next.
the point. No, no, you're not. You don't have to differentiate.
I don't.
Boys
I'm not
can be
differentiating.
equal. Boys also face resistance.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like,
So whoever the child is,
yeah,
in
yeah. So then the
whichever
next
form.
generation should be having this, this quantum of intelligence from you that this is how we handle it. So that's very,
Yeah.
that's actually a thought process for tomorrow. We still don't
Yeah.
have it around in our ecology, as you see. Sanjukta,
Yeah.
any questions that you had?
No. So
Okay.
I will maybe later on when we do a follow-up session, but right now I think the journey, which is an ongoing journey, of course, but we've captured part of the journey that she has so successfully um,
Yeah.
conducted, and especially from the point of the beneficiaries of the work that she's done. Yeah. So I would request Shatraji to kind of
Yeah, before I move on to the vote of
go.
thanks and
Yes.
close the program, this is something that I'd like to put forward because we have very few people, but lots of people will be watching this. So Manvi is our first elected leader because we have seen the way she works. So maybe in the future also we'll be having the pleasure of her company, apropos her comfort and when she has a little less work because I know the kind of work that she has to do most of the year and she really can't be in a position to have this conversation, but sometimes maybe we'll be organizing some small processes where she can come and also share her experience if nothing else in specific scenarios where she can reach out to people who other than perhaps this electronic mode have no way of even receiving that enthusiasm that okay, there are people who are hearing our voices and there are people who are raising their voices for us. It's much more than just putting it forward in a blog post or saying that okay, there are such people. This
Yeah.
is ratification. Yeah. So deeply grateful, especially to Manvi, because we know the kind of stuff that she keeps on doing throughout the year. Thank you very much for coming here and thank you for starting off this process. We are doing it entirely ourselves. Like other than Aspire Infinitus, it's only SDRC and where we perhaps do not have physical presence because even now the pandemic is not gone.
Yeah.
And a lot of thanks to Mr. Sen and of course to Sangeeta, whom we have also known, like both of the people we have known very closely, almost like family for many years now. They've also spared their time and taken time out of their professional schedules. I know Sangeeta took a day off and Mr. Sen also took time off. It was very nice to have all of you here and thank you very much for giving your time because what you're doing is ultimately going to have a lot of positive effect on a lot of girls who otherwise not know really when and how to reach out or what to ask. So thank you very much.